Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our 11 Plus course. And what we're going to look at today is section B, the creative writing section of the 11 Plus paper. And I think, just adjusting my screen a little, I think this is one of the things that some people feel are quite daunting, in the sense that they see this dreaded blank page and they're not quite sure what to do with it. So let me just share my, well, I'm sharing, I think, my screen with you. Um, so you should be seeing a worksheet called Describing Sound. So when we're looking at a describing task, let's say you get a situation or a picture prompt, as we've got here. When you get a describing task, it's very important to remember that you have 5 senses. So good writers will use more than one of the 5 senses when they're describing things. And of course, the visual sense is usually dominant, and we should use that, and we should have a strong sense of colour, but we do need to use the other senses. So how can we do this in an exam situation or in a homework task? And how do we get over that first hurdle of the blank page? So the best way to do this, the best technique, is to ask yourself a series of questions. So what do I mean by that? So you can look at the picture of the young girl here, and you can say, who is she? Does she have a name? Is there a special place she is? Is this a coastline you recognize? Or do you want it just to be somewhere that you've made up? Looking at the light in the sky, I would ask myself, is this morning or evening? So if she's looking at a reddened sky in the morning like this, then she could be on the east coast of somewhere. But if it's reddened in the evening, then she would have to be on the west coast of somewhere to see the sun setting over the sea. So those are the kinds of questions I would ask. If you look at the picture, what is the mood? What is the feeling, the mood, the atmosphere that you would want to communicate here? And then, having asked those basic questions about context, I would then look into the 5 senses. So we can describe what we're seeing, but what we're going to look at today are descriptive words of sound. So before we look at how to do that, let's just take the first picture prompt here and look at what sounds we might be wanting to describe. So first of all, she's near the sea or an ocean, so we would expect the sound of water. There might be a wind or a breeze that you would want to describe, that the girl is experiencing. If you look at the way she's dressed, it seems safe to assume that it's either the summer or somewhere with a very warm climate, because at sunrise or sunset, she would be cold otherwise. We've got this grass on the seashore here, so that might be making some kind of sound that we could describe. And of course, we've got the seagulls here, who, if you've ever been near the seaside, you'll know that seagulls can be very noisy, and it's not a pleasant noise in some ways. So those are the kinds of questions we're asking. So if we look up at our sound, let's look at some of the sounds that we could use to describe water. Dripping, splashing, gushing, flowing, pouring, trickling. A spooky wind. Remember, the girl is standing on grass on a seashore. So she might hear wind whispering, whistling, or murmuring. Or you might want to make the sound drier, like the sound of leaves rustling. Rustling, swishing might be another possibility. So I would recommend that you develop a vocabulary to describe natural sounds like wind, water, leaves on the ground, and so on. Okay, so let's move down again. And let's look at the middle picture. If you notice, all three pictures have water in them, but very different kinds of water and very different effects. So in the middle picture, we've got some young children, possibly at a holiday camp of some kind, playing with buckets of water and throwing water at an older person here, and having a game. And it's been caught with a high-speed camera. So in this case, we might want to talk about the sound of water splashing and sloshing, those sorts of sounds. But we might also want to talk about the sound of the children laughing and shrieking, perhaps. And we might also possibly want to talk about the sense of touch. So the young man who's getting the water thrown at him is probably going to feel very cold, going to have a shock of cold water on him. So you might want to bring in other sounds, so the sounds of the children and so on. In the picture on the right, again, we've got water. Let's look again at our possibility. We've got a waterfall, and we've got a stream with water coming down. So we could think of splashing, gushing, flowing here. So these are sounds we could describe in our picture. If we look at the landscape around the river, we can see that it's quite mountainous and rocky, but that there's also woodland. So this seems to be more of a kind of northern climate, perhaps, but certainly not in the far south. So we might want to think about the sound of the water coming over the rocks. We might want to think about the sound of wind going through the trees. So just to recap then, what we do with a situation where we have to describe things is to think about asking yourself a series of questions. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What can I touch or feel? So you can feel the wind on your body. You can feel water on your body. What might I be feeling under my feet? So if the girl is standing here, she might just be wearing flip-flops or some very light shoes. So she might be able to feel the grass on her feet or on her lower legs because the grass is quite long. So think about, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I touching? What might I be smelling also? So near the coast, she might very well be able to smell salt from the salt sea air. She might be able to smell the grass. She might possibly be able to smell fish. We don't know if there's a fishing boat out of the sight of the picture. So if we move here, what are we seeing? We're seeing a game. So here there's a tremendous amount of movement in this picture, and that would be very good to capture in your description. That you can certainly talk about what you're seeing, what you're hearing. So you could hear the water splashing, you can hear the children laughing, possibly screaming. You can maybe hear a conversation going on. You could describe the feeling of the water going on the young man's back. So the coldness of the water, the contrast between the summer's day and the hot sun and the cold water. And in this picture, it would be very good to use sound description to describe the different sounds of the water coming down on the waterfall, splashing, rushing, gushing, those sorts of sounds. And then the more babbling, trickling sounds as it comes down into the riverbed and goes over the stones. It would be worth mentioning perhaps the sound of wind and breeze going through the trees, because the trees are in leaf. So that will make a sound. You might want to ask yourself what birds or animals might be around in that environment. Can I hear the sound of woodpeckers, birds of some kind? So do think about that when you're describing. So with sound words, of course, you can have very powerful expressions of onomatopoeia, where the words sound like the sounds they're describing. So rushing, gushing, splashing. In the case of thunder here, crack, roar, clap, growl, rumble, bang. These are all onomatopoeic words. They're words that sound like the things they're describing. So that would be what I would call the top layer of the description. You're using your 5 senses rather than just your visual sense. If you can bring in the sense of taste to make all 5, that's tremendous, but it isn't always possible. It depends on the scene. So beneath the top layer of the description, which is the physical description using the 5 senses, you will also have in each picture an atmosphere that you would like to communicate. So in the first picture, the atmosphere is thoughtful and solitary, perhaps even a little lonely and sad. In the middle picture, we've got a very playful, happy atmosphere. And here in this picture again, it's more of a thoughtful picture. There are no humans in the picture at all. So it feels quite solitary and reflective. So you might want to try to build those feelings into your descriptive words. So we use picture prompts to help students develop their descriptive abilities, and as you get in more used to it, you should be able to do it with a word prompt as well. So, for example, describe your favorite place, or describe a place you visited on holiday. So there you've got to create the picture in your mind, but the writing process will be exactly the same. It will be asking yourself the question, what am I doing there, or what is the character doing there? what time of day is it? What season of the year is it? What's the weather doing? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it in between? What can I see? What can I hear? What can I touch? What can I smell? And then build up your description using those 5 senses. So I hope that makes sense. And I'll be back again with some more writing tips in the next video.